Welcome to 2019, guys. It's been a great year. 2018 was a brilliant year. 2019 is going to be even better. We'll be talking about things like this. This is the Nifty 50. We're going to be looking at that more in depth in a later episode. We'll also be talking about these Tiffin camera filters. These are the filters, the ND filters and the colour filters that go over the top of your lens, protect them, and a multitude of other different things. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about time-lapse. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about time-lapse and how I do my time-lapse. I think my time-lapse is the best way of doing it. It isn't probably. There are a billion different ways of doing time-lapse. I'm sure there'll be a million people in the comments below who are like, you can do it this way, and you can do it that way. Yes, you can. Absolutely brilliant ways of doing it. But that's not the way I do my time-lapse. The way I do my time-lapse is how I'm going to show you now. So first up, what you're going to need is a camera, one of those. And you're going to need one of these. This is a timer remote control. Now you don't need to have the Canon timer remote control that I've got here, which is ridiculously priced for what it is. You can get cheaper options and that will do the same sort of thing. And you can get options that will just do the timer. This does all sorts of other things that we'll go into at a later date. I'll do a whole video on what we can actually do with this particular piece of kit. Absolutely brilliant. What I will say is, if you are going to go and do a time lapse and you're going to buy one of these controllers, make sure that the end, the connection end, which is this little bit, focus, this little bit fits your camera. These are built into the high-end cameras like this 5D, 6D Mark II, the 1DX Mark II, etc, etc, etc. They all have one of these connection points built into them, but the lower end cameras, they don't. So without further ado, let's get into finding out how we go about and how I go about doing my time lapse. Okay, so we've got time lapse and we're going to see all those photos, in they all come, 445 of them, and we're going to click import. And then we wait. Okay, so whilst it's importing those photos, I'm going to nip and make a coffee because, well, it's going to take an age to import 445 photos, and then we'll reconvene when it's done its job.
For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't trying to grow, then it's done for you. For the record, lab on me going all the way. For the record, ain't trying to link, no time to waste. For the record, for the record, for the record, for the record, for the record. Been a little too nice to y'all. Now I gotta up price on y'all. Snake eyes on dice for y'all. Shoulders on ice for y'all. A6 all the hate. I won't get a ball today. Got lost in the ball and A's. I'm flipping the bars, I'm flipping the on record, off record. I still count wins when they got it. On record, off record. I let them take advantage. I was wildin'. On record, off record deals. Tell them talk to Colin for the quote. On record, off record. I still want the act, not the ghost. For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't trying to grow, then it's done for you. For the record, lab on me going all the way. For the record, ain't trying to link, no time to waste.
Okay, so once it has imported all our images into Lightroom, what we then need to do is we need to go about editing. Now the reason that I use images, there are a few different ways of doing time-lapse. You can just do a straight video, hit record on your video, let it record for 20 minutes or so, speed it up, boom, you've got yourself a time-lapse, absolutely job done. Is that the way you should do it? Probably not. Is it the way I've done it before? Absolutely. Sometimes you just don't have the time to sit there and take 1,000 photographs. It just happens to be one of those situations where you haven't got the time, you need a time-lapse, you need it quickly, you need it to be fairly smooth, so boom, you just hit record, bang, you've got yourself a time lapse. The iPhone does that, quite a few Android phones do that, and they're good enough, they're good, they're fine, there's nothing wrong with that. Me personally, they don't quite have the depth, they don't quite have the detail that I'm looking for, and as such, I prefer to use images, which is why I've got the controller and so on and so forth. And it's just one of those things where you want a particular look, you want it to look a particular way. It has that more time-lapse type feel to it, I believe, by using still images. You can get the smoothness and so on and so forth by sticking a filter on the front so that you've got that you can open the ISO up a little bit and so on and so forth. You can shoot a little bit brighter, etc, etc. However, that's the way I do it. Once my photos have been put into Lightroom, from that point on, I can then edit my photos. So let's just do that now. So once we've edited our photo and we've got it looking roughly like we want it to look, in this instance, I'm not too fussed about that because this is more about the time lapse rather than about how the photo looks itself. One quick tip is if you use the / key on your keyboard near where the return key is, you get a forward and backwards, what it used to look like, what it does look like now sort of scenario. So I'm going to spend 5 minutes just playing with that. Talk amongst yourselves. So once we've got all that done and you've finished playing with the / key and so on and so forth, what you can do is we can go to our library at the bottom here. As you can see, we've got a list of all the photos that we've got. We click on the first photo and then we scroll all the way to the end and we click on the last photo, as you can see, and that selects them all, they're all highlighted. What we can then do is we can click on this button here at the bottom. There's one that says reset and one that says sync. What we want to do is we want to click on the sync button. What that's going to do is it's going to sync every single edit that I've done to that first photo across all 445 photos that I took the other day. That may be 1,000 photos for you, could be 2,000, could be 10,000 photos. It will sync all those photos, all those edits and movements, and make every photo look across the whole suite look the same. If you are using a time lapse that goes from morning to noon to night, or from night to morning, or from evening to night, you're going to want to sync those photos in batches because you're going to want to make sure the edit smoothly transitions between one timeline in light and another. For instance, the edits that I've done on these photos wouldn't work on the same photo made during the evening. So I would need to batch them out in sort of batches of 500 or whatever, and make sure that the edit was smooth across the whole of that time as the sun sets and so on and so forth. But for this instance, because it's done over the short period of time, I basically had about 15 minutes. I went and stood in a park, clicked away, job done. It's fine to do that for this. So we click sync on that, and then we just make sure that everything's checked that we want to be checked. It is all checked. We click synchronize, and then it works away. You'll see in the top corner it says pasting settings, and that's what it's doing. It's pasting those settings across every single photo that we've got. While that happens, I'm going to get myself some chocolate. Good old, fantastic Galaxy. Okay, so once we've edited them and we've synced all those settings onto those photographs, what we then need to do is we need to export those photos from Lightroom and then get them into Premiere Pro. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to go in our Lightroom, we're going to go to export. We're going to find a subfolder that we want to put them in. In my case, we're going to stick them in the time-lapse folder. I'm going to click new folder and I'm going to call this Time-lapse edited. I'm going to click create on that, click choose, and then click export. What that's going to do is that's going to prepare all those for export, and it's going to then export all 445 files out of RAW and into a JPEG so that Premiere can understand what it's looking at. We can then push those files into Premiere and start from there. Okay, so once we've got the images edited and exported from Lightroom into a file, they're imported into Premiere using a particular method. Now, the way that we do that is we go up to File and Import, and we locate our file that we've got our images in and click on the first image, click on options, and then we make sure that image sequence is selected. What that basically does is, because all these images are sequential, so we've got image 4669, 4670, 4671, 72, 73, 74 and so on. What that will do is it will look at all those files and it will import them all and fetch them into Premiere as one single file. So as I drag that onto my timeline now, you can see we've got one file. Rather than having 1,000 images all one after the other, where you've got to then sort of deal with that and you've got to try and manage how long each one of those images is going to be. What happens is Premiere recognises that all those images should be one file and you want that as one movie, and as such, from that point, imports it as one single file. Once we've done that, we can then render that process out, and it renders the view of that. And from that point on there, we can then look to make the sequence either longer or shorter as a whole. So much the same as you would do if you were speeding up or slowing down a clip in Premiere that you'd shot on a video. And that basically is the way that I do time-lapse and the way that I think that time-lapse should be done. It's much easier, you may get a much better effect from that particular method. If you did like this tutorial and you thought it was interesting and useful, please do like and subscribe below. Leave a comment if you so desire, and I will get back to you as I always do, and I will see you guys next time.